warriors around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals. Bloods on my hands.
Salutare! După cum vedeți și în titlu, astăzi vreau să vorbim despre Steam Deck. Steam Deck este o consolă a celor de la Valve care vrea să vină să revoluționeze ceea ce Switch-ul și alte tablete gen Windows Gaming Tablet au încercat să facă în ultimul timp. Steam Deck-ul e destul de interesant. Vine în 3 variante. Avem la $419 varianta cu stocare de 64 de GB MMC, pardon, 16 GB de RAM și un procesor arhitectură Ryzen, un APU destul de ok. Ce diferă în aceste prețuri este doar partea de stocare. Să mai adaugă câteva profile, un bundle și o stocare mult mai rapidă, cum ziceam. Avem 256 de GB NVMe SSD pe PCI Express 3, undeva la 4x viteza, cum este și pe PC. Iar cel de 679, acela ar fi varianta de top, unde mai primim și o folie de ecran de sticlă. Asta bănuiesc că poate fi folosită și cea de la Nintendo Switch. Îmi pare că este cam la fel, dacă ne uităm atenți. Să mai dăm o temă de tastatură virtuală și cam atât. Eu am făcut deja rezervarea, am făcut rezervarea pentru cea de 679. Acum să vedem expect order availability în Q2 2022. Se pare că mai avem de așteptat. Da, oricum zice că ai librăria ta Steam oriunde, că ai confort, ai aceste trackpad-uri care simulează mouse-ul, ceva foarte interesant. O să fie și un Stream Deck, dar ei spun că funcționează cu orice fel de dock, USB-C. Deci putem pune un dock USB-C de la un alt device și acesta va funcționa perfect, legat de ieșiri video, legat de Ethernet și prelungitoare de USB și cred că și charge. Avem acest reservation fee pe care trebuie să-l achităm. De ce? Pentru că ei vor să facă cât mai corectă producția și livrarea la Steam Deck. Să nu mai existe scalpări și alte probleme, că vezi, Doamne, au apărut 50 de bucăți pe stoc și instant le-a luat cineva. Nu, fiecare cont va face o rezervare, ei vor vedea la final câte rezervări sunt, atâtea produse vor face, plus minus. Minus în funcție de cine mai dă cancel la order sau cine nu va alege să-l plătească prin Steam. Da, zice că putem să dăm cancel la rezervare oricând. Acum hai să vedem și un mic video să înțelegem mai exact ce și cum. Hai să ne uităm la cei de la IGN. Ideea este foarte interesantă.
Embodiment of your Steam library, right? And so all the choices we've made, all the decisions we've made as a team really were about how do we bring and extend that Steam experience into a piece of hardware that is one object, right? And I think that balance of trade-offs, that and the balance of the inputs and the display and all the thermal, everything, battery. I think it's something we're super proud of, right? And it's a careful balance. It comes from a bunch of different personalities and a diverse set of team talking and arguing and doing all those things to make something like this.
We knew that the price point was very important, so we designed, as Yazan and Pirlu said, from the beginning, we designed with that in mind, and we worked very.
Ei zic că s-au gândit din prima la preț și să fie accesibil. Eu zic că 600 de dolari sau euro, ce era acolo, în fel 600 de euro, sunt accesibili pentru un PC portabil și ceva mai mult decât Nintendo Switch. Adică dacă ne uităm la Nintendo Switch, varianta standard, nu aia light, o găsim pe la 1600 de lei. Păi dacă facem un calcul simplu, 1600 de lei, plus că mai adaugi un carry case, să zicem vreo 1800, hai să zicem 1900, hai să zicem 2000, cu un card de memorie cu care să-ți faci treaba, da? Dacă aceștia îi împărțim la 5, să zicem cât e euro, ies 400. Da? Deci pentru varianta standard. Ca să facem comparația cu Stream Deck. Și e 420. Și primești carry case-ul ăla. Da, bine. Așa e 64 de megabytes. Aici parcă mai știu cât naiba aveai la... ai 4 GB de DDR4 și la asta la altul ai 16, ai 32 capacitatea de stocare. Adică mi se pare foarte decent, un price point decent. Uite, și ce este 49 de dolari, e un price point decent. Pentru că ai deja NVMe, adică mai adaugi încă 110, încă 500 de lei, foarte ok. Și aici, să vedem cum va veni în România și ce taxe se vor plăti. Sper să nu pună idioții ăștia taxe.
Very, very hard to achieve the price point that we're at.
Yeah, at the same time, like, we weren't going to sacrifice on fit and finish quality, right? We knew that we needed this device to be premium in feel, premium in look, right? We wanted it to convey all the positive attributes of your Steam experience, right, in a physical manifestation, right? In order to do that, we really wanted to. We leveraged all the experience and learnings from things like Index to how do we make something super high quality and make it feel really robust, right? And so we weren't going to sacrifice those. So balancing that in this atmosphere of supply chain and manufacturing toughness, was something that we knew from the very beginning that we weren't going to sacrifice it. So we needed to find a way. How do we find a way to do that?
The whole thing's powered with a custom APU that we basically worked with AMD on to deliver the best performance and the best battery life possible in this envelope. I think it's very, very difficult for us to make direct comparisons to anything, but we think that we were able to achieve a point where all the games that we wanted to be playable at really good perf, at a really good experience.
We've been looking at various games over the past few years in the back catalog, but the real test for us was the games that were coming out last year. It just couldn't really run very well on the previous types of prototypes and architectures that we were testing. And this is the first time that we've achieved the level of performance that is required to really run the list.
Chestia asta cu trackpad-ul mi se pare foarte, foarte, foarte interesant. Și după cum zic și ei, au căutat să optimizeze și să fie toată librăria disponibilă și s-au focusat pe jocurile din ultimii ani. Adică tot ce înseamnă AAA.
Latest generation of games with that problem. All the games that we wanted to be playable is really the entire Steam library there. We haven't really found something that we could throw at this device that it couldn't handle, at least yet.
We've experimented with other previous generation processors or off-the-shelf processors, and even in this form factor and this power envelope, and it wasn't until now that we felt like.
Voi vă dați seama ce șmecheri sunt cei de la AMD și prin șmecher zic Cât de bun sunt pe partea asta de procesoare și de APU-uri față de combinația Intel, Nvidia sau ceva ce ar fi putut fi în această consolă pe lângă consolă, da, putem să-i spunem PC portabil consolă. Cum au reușit ei să facă posibilă atingerea unei performanțe de genul, plus că sunt undeva la 2,4-3,5 GHz pentru acel procesor, nu mai zic 1,6 GHz pentru placa video, cu o putere destul de impresionantă, adică AMD-ul e destul de sus,
You know, the entire Steam catalog
deoarece fac posibile
is
chestiile
available to
astea.
people who have this device, and I think that's where we knew that we have a product that is going to deliver the experience that we were looking for.
So far, we're looking pretty good. I think everything that's been coming out this year has been running without issues that we've tried. I think this is largely a factor of industry trends. If people are still valuing like high frame rates and high resolutions on different platforms, I think that content will scale down to our 800p 30 hertz target really well. If people start heavily favoring image quality, then we might be in a position where we might have trade-offs, but we haven't really seen that yet.
I think a big factor is that we are using the latest generation GPU from AMD. We are using the new generation CPU from AMD. Even the memory itself, actually, we're using LPDDR5, which is a brand new to the industry. I think we're...
Stai puțin, deci ei folosesc DDR5 ca memorie RAM. Ok, guys.
actually be one of the first products to showcase this new memory technology. So in that sense, that gives a lot of future proofing, especially since we're not the only people with this architecture. Any user that has it and any optimization that game developers make for this new architecture will carry forward to us and benefits as well. So I think we're in a great place.
Right now, the experience of installing games on removable storage like the SD card is done through the device. We've actually done quite a bit of work in Steam to support dynamically removable Steam libraries and improve the experience there. I think that there's going to be opportunities to to build more software there to get to a point where you can preload games on an SD card with a different device, but we haven't really explored what could be done there. So right now, everything is done from the device, and it's a pretty good experience where you can just install the games the way you'd expect and load them up. It's just like if they were on the internal storage, and there's not really a difference in terms of experience. The performance, though, is a little bit different.
I mean, there's definitely difference in performance. I mean, there's nothing we can do about that. But we do think that, like, even if you're using an SD card, the experience is still good. You will notice that load times are pretty great. Obviously, every game is different and every access pattern is different. But at the end of the day, I think our benchmark for that was give it to a whole bunch of people, have them use the SD card and see what their reaction is. And I think the overwhelming reaction was that using the SD card was a great experience, and they felt like it was comparable, not quite as good, but comparable to using the internal drive. So we are using a standard M.2 NVMe SSD in there. We think that it delivers great load times and great save times. We are, we did actually intentionally make it so that, again, with the repellability in mind, it's a separate module. We went against the trend of putting it directly on the motherboard. We're using kind of PCIe Gen 3 by 4, so like the bandwidth available to the user is great there as well. But actually, even on the SD card front, we did spend a lot of time optimizing that. So even if you're using an SD card, you're actually going to get some really great performance as well. We have history with trackpads. I mean, there's a lot of research that was done, a long time ago that made it feel like that trackpads are really one of the most versatile input methods that kind of gives you the best bang for the buck in terms of being able to play all these games on Steam. But we didn't really take any of that for granted. We did sort of start we did kind of re-verify all that and also did a lot of improvements. So the trackpads themselves, in terms of hardware, I mean, they're lower latency than Steam controllers. We added the force-sensitive sensors on there, so you could sort of adjust how much force you want to exert to actuate certain events. But really, it's more about it's a very versatile input method. I mean, people who really want to invest the time to customize it will get a lot of benefits out of it. And so, yeah, we're excited to see how people use it, really.
The touchpads are unique to this device, right? I mean, that's again part of extending the Steam library, right? Like certain games are just not going to be as great with thumbsticks, right? So, you know, again, there's some learnings from other products that we've made on those touchpads for sure.
Totuși, nu știu cum o să fie cu trackpad-urile astea. Adevărul este că cu Steam Controller-ul, bă, nu știu, au cam dat o bară de punctul meu de vedere. Am avut Steam Controller, m-am jucat pe el, nu mi-a plăcut deloc. Și nu mă înțelegi greșit, eu pot să zic că ador controlerele, mai ales modelul Xbox One Elite cu toate padelele alea, dar nu, ăsta n-a fost deloc o reușită. Și layout-ul, adică e foarte important unde amplasez butoanele și cât de confortabil e și multe aspecte.
Well, I mean, so touchscreen is another input method that's not common, and like you could really utilize that to kind of emulate some of the mouse and keyboard features. But also on the software side of things as well, like the Steam API, input API and customizations and all that is kind of critical. But yeah, I think it's really about like giving them a diverse set of inputs that people can kind of customize and play the games that they want to play as they like to play it, basically.
We knew, you know, what screen size would kind of be what we felt was optimal for how you use it and how you hold it. But I think the ergonomics in the beginning, we were like, well, in order to figure out display, we didn't really have to fine tune the ergonomics, right? But then once we kind of figured that out and the battery volume and life, how long the batteries would last based on that volume, then we really needed to dive deep on the ergonomics, and that changed significantly from the first prototype.
And that needed just a lot of play testing time on it for comfort and playability, and then, you know, a lot of different members of the team contributing to play testing in order to have different hand sizes and different regions where they play, etc. tested out. And another thing that we wanted to add is that we actually engaged with our manufacturing partners early on to build multiples of these prototypes, so in the order of 50 or so, because we had to ensure that we could hand them out and have a lot of playtime on each device in order to learn those things.
I think that allows the gyro, which is already something that was a great feature in our input set that we've been supporting in hardware and Steam Input for a long time. That allows it to really shine and be very intuitive to use, even if you're a thumbstick player that doesn't want to deal with, you know, trackpad or learning the other inputs. So we're really happy with where we landed there.
Da, deci destul de interesant. Și acum să vedem.
Platforms and the trade-offs that we feel
Uite-l pe
for ourselves
game.
as game players and as game developers. So it was pretty natural.
So it sounds like you didn't really need much convincing. It was a pretty organic idea.
It's like any gamer. It's like somebody comes along and says, here's actually you know, the kind of gaming experience where you can take, you know, the best games in the world and run them in a mobile environment. You know, we all have known that forever, right? I mean, if you'd asked gamers 20 years ago, they would have been saying the same thing. It's just we're sort of at the point now where the technologies, the enabling technologies advance, the mobile gaming hardware has reached the point where we can really pull that off.
What does success, you just kind of mentioned what you're doing with Index and with Alex and trying to sort of move things forward there in that realm. What does success look like for Valve on this? Like, monetarily, does the whole project need
uite,
to
foarte
break even?
interesant
Does it need
aici.
to be profitable?
Bună
Does that
întrebare.
matter? Is it about driving Steam's subscriptions, engagement? You know, what's sort of the KPI here?
Well, I think it gets harder over time. We're a very financially very successful company, right? And the problem with lots of interesting things is they tend to have exponential curves, and if you're looking at the wrong part of that curve, you're not making good decisions about the future, right? So with VR, our expectation is it's a very long haul and that they're fundamentally important technologies that are being developed. And if at any point you're sort of narrowly defining the goalposts and saying, well, how's that doing against, you know, the latest CSGO, you know, update? You know, you're always gonna end up making bad decisions based on that. So for us, it's really, how does the press react? You know, what are they saying about it? What are they saying about it a year later, right? What's the perception? You know, what are gamers saying? You know, what are their reactions? What are our partners saying are the kinds of things that are most helpful to us? Because our assumption is these are long-term decisions that we're making about how we can contribute to the health and the vitality of this ecosystem. And we're always going to be successful as long as that's continuing to happen. So, if, you know, there are people who have those kinds of opportunities, and it's really a question of do they make smart decisions, you know, about how to keep the ball rolling down the hill. And for us, this seems like an obvious opportunity for us to address that. So in terms of feedback, it's really how are people going to react, right?
E bine că se gândește la oameni. Hai să vedem că aici era ceva interesant.
Device like this, that's your expectation. At least it is for me as a gamer. Is well, I'm in that ecosystem and that's it. So it basically means that this thing is the Xbox handheld that Microsoft never made, because if you have Game Pass, you can just sign in on the Microsoft store, download their PC games. Have you talked to Microsoft at all about this yet? Because obviously, I'm sure you have a limited circle of trust here. Like, do they know you're about to release an Xbox handheld?
Well, you know more of the details than they do, but our view is that the openness of the PC ecosystem is the superpower, right? That we all collectively benefit from. So if you want to install the Epic Game Store on here, if you want to, you know, run an Oculus Quest on it, those are all great. Those are features, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear as a gamer. I don't want to hear that somebody's got some Trojan horse that's going to try to lock me down. I want to hear whatever I want to do. If there's hardware I want to attach to it, if there's software I want to install, I can just go and do it. And you know, we think that's great.
Yeah, all the people working on this product are PC users themselves, right? And we know that there's tons of value that is not necessarily on Steam that we use on a daily basis, either in gaming or non-gaming users. So we would have been pretty bummed to try to deliver something that's essentially just a portion of what PC is all about.
What were the guardrails for this project from a maybe
direction? That's the PC community, you know, pushing into this space.
Were there any Gabe-specific features that you requested in the device? Did you kind of weigh in with any wish list items that Pierre-Loup and the team had to go and work in?
Well, I do immediately play Dota with each new version that I get, so I probably
da, Dota.
Laser focused on the usability testing.
So you're the trackpad then. That's a big one for you.
Yep.
Makes sense.
But that's just me being a gamer, right? That's not me being being a president.
Adică să fim serioși, toată lumea știe că CSGO-ul și Dota au făcut cei mai mulți bani la Valve. Cei mai mulți bani. Și cred că cam în același timp. Și cred că Dota chiar cei mai mulți. Chiar cei mai mulți.
Not far from here. Has the Switch influenced this at all, either ergonomically or in terms of just showing, hey, there is a market for, like, you know, higher end handheld gaming, or is it just not really a factor for you?
I mean, there have been attempts to provide mobile gaming platforms for a really long time, and for me, as somebody who's used to sort of high-end desktop PC gaming and console gaming, they always felt like they were compromises. So I think Nintendo does a great job targeting the audience they do with the content that they have, and that's going to be different. Like when you pick this up, it feels much more like the ergonomics for somebody who's used to playing with, you know, an expensive game controller, right? And you know, it's because of that, it's bigger and it's bulkier than a Switch. And you know, if we're right, that's the right trade-off to be making for the audience that we're going after. And obviously, I mean, I think they've sold 85 million Switches.
Doing all right.
Well, it's obvious that they've made the right set of trade-offs for those customers and that kind of content. And we'll just have to find out whether or not we've made the right trade-offs. For me, it feels supernatural and makes a lot of sense when I'm trying to play, you know, Resident Evil Villages on this. You know, we're going to find out pretty soon whether those choices that we've made are correct. But I think they are. So,
Pirlu, how
I think they're really two parallel things.
every bit as a hardware company as it ever is or was a software company, are there any other areas that you're still looking to, that you see in the future for Valve that you want to branch into?
you mean in addition to hardware?
Yeah.
Well, hardware plus software is a pretty big. That'll keep us busy for a while. So, unless I decide to go to medical research for brain-computer interfaces.
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go next. Actually, is, you know, that was a topic that I was surprised to hear from you about last time, and it sounds like something you've been putting a lot of time and energy into that. Has the pandemic changed your sort of thoughts on that at all, either to try and accelerate that research, or I'm just sort of curious, where, you know, 1 year later, talking to you from a year ago to now, is that still a big focus and
Yeah, absolutely.
thing for you? Yeah.
Yep. Super exciting. I think the things that we'll be able to do are, you know, it's one of those highly speculative bets, you know, and
Yeah.
and within our company, it's the kind of longer range risky thing that
I really loved it. It seems like for the past year, I've seen lots.
on the deck. So
Yeah, full-size thumbsticks with the capacitive touch. It's been fun to use here these last couple days. The ending, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't finished Half-Life Alyx. You know, you obviously have such a connection to the original games, the original two, and now, so when you saw that ending come to life, what was your thought?
endings are hard, but to us, it feels like the right progression for where we're going with Half-Life. So, you know, and that's, yeah, so it worked perfectly in terms of where we see ourselves headed. So
That's music to my ears as a Half-Life fan. Gabe, Pirlu, thank you so much.
thanks.
Și aici o să încheiem videoul nostru. Sper că v-a plăcut, că v-am dat ceva idei, detalii. Eu o să iau această consolă deoarece îți oferă 3 lucruri foarte importante. Unul dintre ele ar fi portabilitate, compatibilitate pentru toată librăria de Steam, poți să te joci orice și nu în ultimul rând faza cu stocarea și cu deck-ul, că îl poți transforma într-un PC oriunde, doar conectându-l la un ecran mai mare. Acum nu o să fiu de acord cu chestia de 30 de Hz, ci mi-aș dori să existe 60 de Hz măcar pentru acea rezoluție și toate jocurile să meargă măcar la 60 de FPS-uri, pentru că să fie o experiență mult mai fluidă. Dar să trăim și să vedem. Volcan am fost, pe data viitoare.